Um, the history of the banjo to me is so fascinating. A lot of people who come to this instrument, like I did through the playing of Earl Scruggs, I spent many years without really fully understanding how deep the history of the banjo is on our shores. And of course, most people, and I'm sure probably all y'all, know that the banjo came to our shores originally in the memories of the enslaved people from West Africa. So, like people always say, the banjo came from Africa, but it didn't come in carry-on baggage. It came in memory. And so, when these people arrived on the plantations in the South, they started to reconstruct banjos that don't look anything like this banjo. But they're kin to the banjo in the sense it was gored with a neck and a few strings. Beginning of the 1800s, white working class musicians who lived near the plantations started to learn the plantation repertoire, and then they took that music in the minstrel shows all up to the north and then across the pond to England and Ireland, and that's how the banjo went to Europe. So it's a case of an instrument traveling, rather than old world to new world, it was new world to old world, which I find really fascinating. Beginning of the 1800s, the banjo was a black instrument. At the end of the 1800s, the banjo was America's most popular instrument and the instrument of choice for demure young white women to play in their parlors, because you were supposed to sit to play the banjo with your legs just so. So it's a fascinating history, and there's so much about this instrument that predates, like well before Earl Scruggs ever played his first lick on the banjo. This instrument had a really deep history, and so it's fascinating to me to hear different songs that pull from different eras of our history and from our immigrant history too. There's so much you can do with this instrument. It's an instrument that's constantly been evolving, and so I love it when people bring something fresh to it. So thank you, Mark. I'm going to reach back though into the 1800s for a couple of tunes from America's probably first pop songwriter, Stephen Foster. And I'll play a couple of tunes that you might recognize, and then maybe I'll play a little bit of Sally Ann, which is also a very old fiddle tune. It's maybe a little bit more like Sail Away Ladies, but kind of inspired by the way Earl Scruggs adapted the tune. Yeah, which is kind of your end. But I was sitting around during the pandemic and reading the stories about the hospitals up in New York that were playing this tune as they were discharging recovering COVID patients. This is a tune George Harrison wrote that you will recognize. Investment banker, and I used to call this Angelina Banker, but it's actually Angelina Baker. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys for listening to us. Everybody here is playing more shows today. Mark, when are you playing? Or did you do your set? And are you playing tomorrow?
No.
Okay. So you missed Mark, but he's local. So he plays at least once a month locally.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
So can people sign up to get on your mailing list?
Sure.
How do they do that?
Why don't you come up to me after the show?
Come up to him after the show, get on Mark's mailing list. Janie,
Allan and I are playing tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the lobby stage right up there. And if you want to play some tunes and you see me, just ask. I'll probably say yes.
Great. Do you have a mailing list?
Yeah, and you can go to janierothfield.com. And we also have some CDs up at a CD up at the thingy, the merch tent.
Merch tent.
How about you, Alison? You're playing?
Yes, we're playing at 9 o'clock on the main stage. I've got my quintet, so we'll be pushing the envelope a little bit.
Thanks for coming, y'all.
Yeah, please, and please,
Thanks, you sound
yeah,
guy.
so, he's got a URL code. You can scan QR code on his phone if you need legal advice. Ask Mark if you need advice about the state of the record business. Ask me. And if you need to know anything about Paris, ask Janie. She just got back from there. You guys have been great to play for. Thank you for sitting on the grass in the sun. Angelina Baker. Would you kick it off, Janie?
Sure.
Mark Schultz on the banjo and Janie Rothfield on the banjo. My name's Alison Brown. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. Thank you to our sound engineer. Janie's doing, which is kind of the precursor, maybe to three finger in some ways, but it's a more old traditional style. And this is a tune that goes back to the Civil War, if I'm not mistaken, and it probably has origins across the pond far before that. It's a tune called Soldier's Joy. Let's see, who wants to kick this thing off? I guess I can kick it off. Let's see, why don't I just count it in and I'll start right on the downbeat of the tune. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Spent a lot of time in this tuning over the last year or so, working on music with Steve, because I know he loves this tuning because it is so great for clawhammer, and it is so underused for three-finger players. For anyone who's keeping score out there, you tune your fourth string down to a C, and your second string up to a C, and there's all kinds of great melodies that you can find in this tuning. Really encourage you to put your banjo in double C tuning and see what you think of. Steve and I have a record coming out in October, and it's a lot of songs, a few tunes, but almost everything was written on the banjo, and most of it in double C tuning. So there you go. I think what I'll do is I'll play a bit of a tune that was the first tune that Steve and I wrote together It was a tune that I recorded on my last record. The record's called On Banjo. And I was sitting around one day during the pandemic with my banjo and double C and came up with an A melody. And I texted it to Steve and said, "Do you want to write a beat?" And he said yes, because it was the pandemic and everybody was home, bored. And so within a day he sent me back a perfect B section, and then we wrote a bridge on a Zoom call, and then we recorded this tune. And then a few months later, much to my complete surprise, because for a double banjo instrumental, but for Steve's utter delight, this song went to #1 on the Bluegrass radio charts. And so Steve called me up and he said, "Alison, we have a hit." And I didn't want to say, "Steve, it's just Bluegrass radio." He was so excited. And then a few weeks after that, he sent me lyrics about having a song go #1 on Bluegrass radio. So we recorded that song. It's called Bluegrass Radio, and we put it out as a single, and doggone it if it didn't debut at #1 on Bluegrass radio. So we've been very careful what we write about. Here's this tune takes its title from a lyric in a John Hartford song. John wrote a song called Down on the Levee, and in that song he writes about a foggy morning breaking. And John was a banjo player, of course, and I know he was messing with all of us who've spent a lifetime saying Foggy Mountain Breakdown. It's very hard to say foggy morning breaking if you've been used to saying Foggy Mountain Breakdown your whole life. And somebody wrote about this tune recently and actually called it Foggy Mountain Breakfast. So I know it's hard for a lot of people, but you can learn to do it, and hopefully you can learn to play it too. I'm gonna see if I can play a little bit of it for all y'all. It's Foggy Morning Breaking.